Good evening, and welcome to the Wednesday, February 21st, 2018 meeting of the Public Works Advisory Board. All members of the board are present, so I'll call the meeting to order. I do have one announcement tonight. Next week on Monday, February 26th at 6 o'clock in the Vets Hall will be the Baywood Park Training Area Recurring Review. That's going in San Luis Obispo County. This deals with the when the military base was in Morro Bay and in Los Osos, Baywood, and using a lot of the area for for training, military training. So there's a lot of there have been in the past a lot of unexploded ordnances at some of the various locations. So I've been to one of these meetings in the past, and I would encourage all members of the public to come and try to attend that meeting. And that's going to be Monday, February 26th at 6 p.m. in the Vets Hall. Are there any other announcements to be made?
Yeah.
John?
As far as that UXO, I did take a look at the paperwork on there. And concerning what's been out there, there should be a lot more notice. And so if you haven't heard about it, it really would be a good idea for you to go to that meeting. And then the other thing is that Rick and I went to the Mud Creek Slide a couple weeks ago, and that was fun.
As well as City John Moringa was also a part of that tour. Let's see. No presentations this evening. This is now the time for public comment period for items not on the agenda. Any members of the public wishing to speak, step forward. No members of the public are approaching the podium, so we will now move to, I'll close public comment period. We'll go to the consent agenda. Item A1 is approval of the minutes of January 24th. Are there any additions or corrections that need to be made? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve the minutes as stated.
A second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Item B1, Director's Report. This will go to Rob. First, I'd like to mention I noticed a new format on the presentation, and it bothers me that we're using 17 pages of paper to put on about 7 pages of information. I realize this is the PowerPoint mode, but I don't, I'm just concerned about the unnecessary expansive use of this process. Anyway, with that introduction, I'll give it to Rob.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we do have a format that we were able to include photographs without messing up the formatting. Our standard presentation, you'll notice that our utilities division included some information on the smoke testing that was performed in North Morro Bay to determine leaking sewer lines and places where things are tapped into the sewer lines that don't belong. And then we also have a new piece of maintenance equipment, our VACON truck, for sewer line cleaning. We have some photos from Consolidated Maintenance and text from there where that includes a lot of, since the assessment districts are a subject of the next item, we're showing quite a few on that work, and then also our
Del Mar restroom reconstruction that will include a new ADA accessible stall in there. So with that, I'd be happy, or staff here would be happy to answer questions that you might have.
Okay, tonight we'll start all the way down on my left with Christian. Do you? Okay. Jan? Jan?
I had a question, but Rob just inadvertently answered it. It was about the patio drain and the sanitary line. But so my comment is that I appreciate the pictures. Thank you.
I was going to ask a question on the same thing, where they tie into the sanitary sewer. Did they tie into the sewer line in the house and ultimately made it out to the street sewer? Because I assume there was no P-trap if you were getting smoke up out of it.
I would assume that it was tied into the, because we placed the smoke in the sewer main.
Right.
So it is.
That's kind of bothersome. I would think they'd be getting sewer gases in their backyard as a result of all this. Did you smell it when you walked back?
I actually wasn't on site. It's pretty breezy there.
Well, that probably works. I'm always surprised, never amazed, or the other way around when I see stuff like that. That was pretty much it for me.
Okay, Stu?
Rob, I don't know where the cutoff is for what the city's responsibility is for water coming into the house, or the house's responsibility, but one of the residences that's on Ironwood, that happens to be a rental, is pouring water out of the junction right where it comes out of the street and just goes over the curb, and it's wet. I did report it, and I don't know if it's that's a renter in there, and I would imagine they get their water free from the landlord. But it's something that probably needs to be looked at, because it is a water leak and we are wasting water there. So that's my first comment. My second comment is we're up to 48 gophers at Del Mar Park, and they're about to take over the grounds up there. And I would imagine outside of a restroom being constructed and finished, there's some issue with the gophers digging holes in the ground and our liability there. And my question would be, do we have a liability if somebody steps in a gopher hole and gets hurt? Is that the city's responsibility, or should they have seen the gopher hole?
Go ahead.
I've been to a number of different safety conferences, and we've had our parks and playgrounds audited by a third party. It hasn't come up. So the question hasn't been asked and answered in my presence. It's definitely something we can shoot an email off to our CJPI, California Joint Powers Insurance Authority, and see if they have an opinion on that. I would say it definitely in a sports area where you're running and not looking necessarily at the ground, maybe looking at a soccer ball or a fly ball in there, baseball or softball. So that's why we try to do a really good job at Lila Kaiser. And the ground at Cloisters is so hard, we don't really see a road issue in the lawn area for some reason. We've seen some out in the outskirts, outline areas. I don't have a definitive answer for you on that question. Maybe we'll get one by the next time we meet.
Yeah, and of course, everybody wants to do the most humane thing possible. And of course, that is I went over to Pacific Wildlife, and they said, well, we'll just put a cage over and put an owl in it, and the gophers will be gone shortly. Well, that's not very humane. They're going to eat the gophers. And I don't know if there's a way to move them or not, but if you do visit that, if anybody visits that park, there's holes all over the place. And every week there's fresh holes over there. So I don't know what we can do about it, but there's some in Del Mar School too. And but we do need to address that and do something with that, I would think. That's all I have.
Okay, Chris?
Yeah, on the sidewalk collapse on the Embarcadero, was that a sinkhole or a water leak, or any input on that?
It was from a project that was, I think, about 5 years ago, where they were tying into, I believe it was the sewer main, and they were, when they backfilled, they were using slurry and didn't get slurry pushed all the way back under that driveway there. That's what caused that issue. I think they probably had some sloughing in the trench that caused a dam, and then the slurry didn't get out. I know they had an inspection hole to make sure slurry was getting back there from what the crew was saying, but I don't think actually slurry made it back there, obviously.
And then just a question on the restroom project at Del Mar. Are we doing all that in-house? Or is it all?
Yes, Mike's crew, there's a little bit of volunteer labor, but I'll let Mike expand on that.
Yeah, we had a group of volunteers back in the fourth week of October from Rock Harbor that wanted to do a project. They offered to paint the structure, and when Pastor Ponder came out with one of his congregation and determined that painting wasn't going to help that structure. So they offered then to remove the siding so we could see what the extent of the problem was. So staff evaluated it. It's well within our skill set to do wood structure work. And we reached out to an architect that we've worked with in the past, because knowing that we'd have to basically remodel or restore the entire restroom, we would need to add those amenities. So we waited a few weeks on that to come through before we could really dig into it. And it's been a challenge staffing wise, but we're going to meet our target dates, because there's one long lead item out there is the doors. They're a door that will be very graffiti friendly for us and very durable, and they're not due in until about the first week of April. So we've got time to stucco, go through the crack process on the stucco, which we are contracting out on the stucco. We're going to do the lath work, but we're going to contract out with the stucco. Everything else we expect to take care of in-house, and we should see, we're putting together some numbers right now, we will see a substantial savings over contracting that out. We'll be well below the required bid limit, which I believe is at $45,000 if you have to go to an informal process. So.
My only other question is on the water, the Water Resource Control Board meeting. Do we have any updates on that?
Let me see which that item is under. Which what?
For the water conservation you're talking about?
Yeah, I think it lists a meeting was yesterday.
Yeah, I didn't go back and look, but I'm pretty sure they're going to adopt all of those there. I can let you know though.
Okay.
John?
Few things. Just out of curiosity, how many cross connections did you find with a smoke testing?
I don't have the final analysis on that yet.
More than two?
More than two, definitely more than two.
Okay.
Roof leaders, a lot of backyard showers, and a few drains.
Okay. What's the process for dealing with the cross connections? Will you send letters?
Send letters to the property owners and have them resolve that.
Okay. So I'd be interested to find out how many cross connections you did find, and if there's going to be any reduction in required capacity for the plant.
Yeah, so that's one of our sources of inflow. Other sources that's a fairly shallow system there. So a lot of clay pipe, a lot of transite also out there. So we get inflow coming in directly into the pipe also there.
Okay. Still be interested to find out if there's any fixes that you can incorporate cost effectively. Let's see, another question I'm trying to remember, I think I was down near Arroyo Grande and I saw a sample of a monitor stream flow temporary gauge. So I can't see how, I don't think I'd want to spend as much money as budgeted for it, but I imagine that's what they cost nowadays. It's a weir for the fish to jump over, so.
Right, and what our requirements are is to put permanent gauging there that includes fish passage on Choro Creek because it is a steelhead stream.
Yeah. And then the last question I had was over on, what do you call it? North Point. Which slope are you having the erosion problem on from people walking down it?
It's from the parking lot up to any one of those hills, all the way around the perimeter of the parking lot.
So the entire
People will get out of their car and immediately walk up the hill.
Yeah, so do I.
It's expected, but I think, and there's been some concern of a couple residents that we're going to put some sort of a barrier rather, and maybe a specific, one or two specific points where traversing the hill would be best. Maybe a couple switchbacks, something to help to prevent further erosion.
Okay. I think I'm done.
Okay, Steve, you had another question?
Yeah, I had one more question. It's on that wastewater new WRF page. And down at the very bottom, it talks about staff anticipating having a new program manager on board before receiving the WRF proposals. And I guess I'm not quite sure how it all fathomed out. I know last time we talked, you were looking at taking it over and maybe having somebody backfill your position, Rob, or hiring somebody expressly for this purpose. How did that all fare, I guess, is my question.
Council gave direction to the city manager to hire a program manager, outside consultant. So we've met informally with a few entities. That RFP should be going out. Attorney and city manager review hopefully will be finished up as we speak. If Scott's watching, he should focus on that. And we hopefully get it out tomorrow. So we'll have a couple-week percolation.
So it'll be a dedicated program manager to this purpose.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, Stu?
Rob, on the water use, looks like we're getting into a water problem in the state, and they're going to declare something or another, Brown is. And how are we identifying the high-use connections, maybe in residential or maybe in commercial also, connections that are above what a typical connection is? Do we have a methodology to identify those, and are we helping them to do something about it?
Currently, there's no numeric requirement for water conservation. It's best management practices. So basically, we don't have a specific limit requirement on water use, nor is the state mandating a specific limit on water use.
I say that because my neighbor is using 2 units of water, and our bill last month at our house was 9 units. And of course, I've got a large garden, but I suspect I've got something going on with piping, and it'd be great to have something where somebody came out and said, okay, I can hear a leak over here or over there. I know they've got that equipment that'll let them do that, and they dig it up and fix it or do whatever. But do we offer any kind of service?
No,
like
we
that?
would refer people to a private plumber to do that work.
Okay. I recall last year, starting in February, you started including a reminder or warning about tree trimming and removal on public and private lands during nesting season from February 1 through June. I thought that was very helpful and informative, being placed in the director's report so that people who actually look at these documents get to be reminded of this every year. So if you're able to do something like that again, I think that would be very helpful. Okay, if there's no other questions on the director's report, then we'll move on to item B2, the Morro Bay, City of Morro Bay Assessment District update for North Point and the Cloisters. Rob?
So Mike is going to do the majority of this presentation, but as you know, we have two assessment districts in town, the Cloisters Landscape Lighting Maintenance Assessment District, and also North Point, which is at the very north end of town. Both those assessment districts were formed through the permitting process and a requirement of the coastal development permit. And they maintain, with North Point, all of the natural area and the stairway. Cloisters, it's both the active park and kind of the inactive open space area. And with that, I'm going to let Mike talk about some of the maintenance activities that we regularly do out there, some specific projects that we've worked on, and then ideas for future CIPs that might be needed. Mike?
Tried to summarize as best as possible to keep the pages short and concise. Basically, North Point is a natural area. It's always been maintained as a natural area, which means it requires very little maintenance. And it's the resources for that assessment district are abundant to where we can take on projects like rebuilding the stairs, slurry sealing the parking lot, creating a barrier that I'm thinking about for the hillside and the slope area. We're looking to also probably retrofit the lights to an LED fixture. The Cloisters is a little bit more challenging and has been over the years. It's a fixed assessment that is likely never to change, so we have to. But what does change is the value, the cost of staffing, the cost of a contractor, the price of equipment, the price of fuel. Everything's gone up. So we're trying to do more. The same with less at the Cloisters. But having said that, there have been a number of projects which we took some photos of and put in the director's report. That at the request of the representatives for the Cloisters community, we've taken on several smaller projects like that, re-landscaping planters. We've done some floor restorations in the restroom, which is actually very beneficial for lowering costs. Requires a lot less cleaning to clean a floor that's impervious to odors and liquids and stains and whatnot, and one that drains. Listed a bunch of activities. It's really a diverse bucket of skill sets needed to maintain stuff at the Cloisters. Very diverse. There's natural area. There's sand encroachment, which requires equipment operator. There's a lot of wood that's rotting now. It's been in there long enough. A couple decades is plenty. We probably have in the near future some sediment removal to investigate at the ponds. At the pond, rather. We did have that checked out about 5 years ago, and it was still at a very low, maybe 8 to 10 inches, I want to say, is what came back on the report. We've done no crack sealing. We've done no street overlay projects in that parking lot at the Cloisters, and it's probably in need of one badly at this point. So that's what I've tried to present in this presentation. And any questions along those lines or anything that you see might benefit us from a resource standpoint, I'd be open to.
Okay, I'll start on my far right this time with John.
I really don't have any, so you're saying you have no cost.
Microphone.
You're saying you have no cost of living criteria for Cloisters, is that right?
Neither of the assessment districts have a escalator built into the assessment district, and California, we have Proposition 218, which requires any changes to the assessment to be approved by those assessees. So rather unlikely that they will vote for an increase in the assessment.
Do you have a carryover fund for the assessment districts?
Yes, we usually carry over. Depend on the level of maintenance. When we had all contract maintenance, we would carry over very little. Now that we've moved that back in-house, we carry over several $1,000s every year for capital projects that we might need to take on. We've done pathway resurfacing out there as a capital project. We restored all of the, there's 7 interpretive panels on the walking path that were all replaced using the capital funds that we have out there. So we have done that. Accumulate as much as we can and spend that on the larger projects. We'll do the same thing for the sediment removal project when that comes up.
Okay, Chris?
I don't have anything at this time.
Okay, Stu?
Talking about the lighting out there, I noticed a comment on the lighting that we have some, thank you, that we have some LEDs going in out there and so on. I would imagine compared to sodium or whatever else we've got out there, that lowers the cost of lighting considerably. And does the city pay for lighting there as part of the assessment?
Yeah, the assessment district pays for the utilities. There's, I believe, 5 meters for the cloisters, so it's irrigation and lighting. Yeah.
So if we wanted to get more funds to do various things out there with lighting, all we'd have to do is change the light bulbs, or at least, as a comment in here, put something in there so we can put LEDs in there to lower the cost of generating light out there. Is that right?
We would definitely see an impact to the utility bill at that location, to be the one that the meter that's mounted at the restrooms. Would it be significant? Maybe probably see maybe a 5-year payback on that. I would consider a 3-year payback to be a significant payback.
Okay, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, Steve?
Yeah, first of all, on the cloisters, I totally understand the whole assessment district scheme because it's to the direct benefit of the people living out there. The North Point was a little odd to me, and I'll be honest, I didn't even realize it existed before I got this staff report and went up there today. And I always felt, looking at Toro Lane, it feels like it's a private road and probably shouldn't be entering it when you first drive up. And the reason I say that is because you're basically using those funds to maintain a parking lot that the 10 people living out there never use because they probably walk out to the, to the North Point natural area directly from their homes. And I was trying to figure out exactly what these costs cover. Does it cover the private road? Is that a private road that runs in front of their units?
That is a privately maintained road that they offered, and we accepted
So you are taking care of that as part of that 560?
No, we're not. They maintain that road.
Oh, okay.
We just have access rights over the top of it to the public parking lot.
Yeah, I guess it just struck me as odd, assessment district-wise. When I look at the cloisters, they go up directly to their homes with the different trails or the streets they live on, and so they do get a direct use, and the parking lot at the cloisters is probably a very small part of the overall cost of the entire assessment district. I was just, it just begged the question to me because, quite frankly, I felt North Point was taken care of. It looks like they're doing a decent job. The pay, everything going in there felt fine. There was some erosion, I'm sure, due to the recent storms last year that you do see out there. And I have never had a qualm with how you've been taking care of the cloisters. I'm not always sure where the cloisters open space ends and other trails begin, because sometimes you get sand drifts on bike paths and stuff of that nature that goes on. But I don't have anything really to add. The one thing I did learn today is there's a North Point natural area up there at the north end of town that I was wholly unaware of in all the years I've lived here. In any case, that was the only thing that caught my eye in looking at all this, Rob.
A quick comment. We can provide you a map of that at any time. If you want to stop by, we can pull you a map of the cloisters. It is a pretty extensive area that's maintained.
Yeah, I know there's some areas as you get back, I'm going to say to the southerly end, where it starts creeping back around that area, and some of the bike paths get overrun by sand, and I know it's a never-ending battle kind of a situation. I just didn't know if that was part of the cloisters or if it was. And does it include both cloisters 1 and 2? Are they both assessed for the park, or is it just the newer end of the cloisters?
Coral separates 2 parcels of land,
Oh, okay.
and it's the southern border is the creek at the high school.
Oh, okay. So it goes back as far as the creek itself.
And the creek is actually on the high school property.
Oh, okay. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay.
Jan?
So Coral separates 2 parcels of land. Does that mean that only the people in one of those parts pay the assessment? Because, or do the people at the other end closer to San Jacinto pay also? You know, they're on the freeway side of Coral.
Correct. The majority of the land on the freeway side of Coral is natural area, if not all of it. I
The
don't
houses that are there are included in the assessment?
all 100 and
I mean, the houses by, you know, on the freeway side of Coral.
yes, they are. There were what, 3 homes there, 4 homes there. Yes, they're part of the assessment.
Okay, then my other question was, it said on page 21 that in 2009, the city entered into a short-term assessment, could no longer support this resource up at Cloisters, I guess. And then in 2016, they could again. So in 2009, did the city put any money into that, or was it just that you had less services? And anyway, and why did it go back to full service in 2016?
I should have reread my staff report. I was been traveling most of the
First paragraph, page 21.
We contracted out for a little over 3 years, partially as an experiment and partially because there was a belief at the time that would be a cheaper, a more affordable way to get the work done. As it turns out, I can send any one of my staff out to Cloisters to do multiple jobs. We found out after a short period of time that the contractor wasn't allowed to even send out a custodian without a supervisor, as per the public contract code or per the labor code. So it was written, and when it expired, I believe it was when it expired. Maybe it ran for a little bit period beyond expiration, but we did not entertain that again.
Okay, so but you still only had that set amount of money to work with, because you said you couldn't raise the assessments.
There was a set amount, there's a set budget to work within each year. The contractor was actually given less responsibility than we currently have as far as areas of maintenance. We didn't require them to do anything in the natural area under that agreement, and they did very little with the wood fencing other than paint it once or twice.
And this assessment helps maintain that stairway that goes down to the rocks? Or is that?
That would be at North Point, yes.
On North Point,
Yes, it does.
Sorry, I'm skipping around. And the other question, just out of curiosity, what's the source of the water in the pond in the Cloisters?
It's runoff. It's not running now. I'm not certain why it doesn't drain. There might be some infiltration from seawater, but I'm not an expert in that, what's going on with that.
We'll find out with the smoke test.
It's coming basically from everywhere east of there, coming off that hillside, then crosses under the freeway and drains into that pond.
So there's more than one stream drains into there?
Yeah, probably a couple little drainages. I wouldn't call them streams. They're dry most of the year.
Yeah. When I walk out there, I'm thinking, I'm not passing over any streams. How did this pond get here? And then I was wondering if it was seawater.
No, it's fresh water.
It's fresh water.
Yeah, and then it overflows that into the playa area out in the dunes, and infiltrates there or runs into the ocean.
Okay.
Christian?
Yeah, just a couple of brief notes. Is there in the Cloisters
with a lift station, do they have additional assessments for their sewer district or no?
No, that's paid out of the sewer fund, so that's not part of the assessment district. It serves basically that whole west side beach tract area, ends up draining to there, and it's just a convenient spot to have that lift station.
Okay, so there was no other.
No.
Yeah, and was there a shortfall? I mean, it's harder to budget when you send out, in-house folks on that, but is there an estimated shortfall on both those assessment districts for maintenance?
Not at this point in time. We've had to get smarter about our maintenance out there, and in past years, we've had up to 2.5 full-time people just stationed out there, working continuously. We really can't afford to do that. We send folks out there as needed, but they're not working there full-time. That might have been a little over the top as far as maintenance goes. So we've learned to work a little bit smarter out there, and but there will come a time, because it is a fixed assessment, that we're not facing that right now or urgently, but where the costs could overtake what the assessment that takes in. And I know that some of the folks in the cloisters believe that should be the case, that the city's general fund, because of the entire city enjoys benefit of the cloisters. So there's some opinion that all of us need to participate in the payment of that.
Sure. And there's a note, it was a noticeable difference when you took it back over on the paths and the cleanliness and some of the reorganization with the signs and stuff.
Yeah, I think with our crews, there's a lot of ownership in the maintenance work that goes out there, because, they're wearing the uniform, they get recognized when they're working out there, so they want to keep it looking nice and enjoy the kudos, but don't enjoy it when things go bad.
Okay, I've got a couple questions or comments also. On the North Point, I see the private road sign as you're going out there. Is the North Point natural area a coastal access site officially designated?
I don't recall if there's any coastal access from the natural area. There's a couple of
Well, the stairway's down to the beach.
Yeah.
But the parking lot there, but it's not a designated coastal access.
I don't think we have the coastal access signs up there.
Yeah, I know that I didn't see any.
Yeah.
I was wondering if it was, because I think that when people get to that sign that says private road, a lot of people don't know that they do have access to that location. If there's a public access, maybe not the official coastal access, but if it says public access allowed or something like that, I realize it probably a lot of people that know about it, it gets a lot of use. But I don't like the idea that it's being discouraged because of the private road sign. Anyway, it's just a suggestion.
I think the coastal access sign would be a good addition, because it's a recognizable sign.
Yes. Does that have to be authorized by the Coastal Commission?
No.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a standard Caltrans sign.
I noticed just before the private road in the new house that went in, where there is a coastal access pathway, along the little creek that goes down, that has a coastal access sign. But there's nothing on the road besides the sign that says private road.
And I think a couple houses to the north, there's another coastal access in between two of those houses along there. I'm not sure where you would go if you went to the end of that, because it's a pretty good drop-off there.
Okay, and the other item is with the cloisters. I noticed when I was going over the paths on the southwest section of the cleared area where you get up to the path and then the fence. Just at the end of the cleared area, there's some dense foliage between the path and, the houses. And right there, after, as you start with the dense foliage, there's a foothold of pampas grass. And pampas grass is like the kudzu of the coast. It's right across, 3 feet away from our sign that says environmentally sensitive habitat, which is on the west side of the fence, of the path. Is there some way that we can eradicate that before it spreads everywhere in that area? I notice I see pampas grass popping up in the Morro Bay State Park. I see it popping up in the Back Bay, and up behind Los Osos, there's just fields of it. I would hope that the City Council would consider a ban on pampas grass as far as the importation or selling of pampas grass in the city. I know several cities, like in San Diego County, are doing that because it's just, like I say, it's the kudzu of the coast. When John and I went on the tour up to Mud Creek, you drive up Highway 1, and there's just walls and walls of this pampas grass. And I think it's important that the city and the county take a stand and start eradicating this, because it just takes over everything. So anyway, looks like Mike wants to comment on that.
Would you like to see that as a future agenda item?
Why not? If we can start it here, I think that would be a good discussion jump off. Thank you very much. And let's see. The next question that I had was back on the director's report on the pages 7, where you showed the fence, the 2 photos of the fence. Okay. The fence is failing barrier wire on the one photo, and the wire is removed on the other, but there's no real explanation as to, is this a before and an after shot, or are you planning to take all of the wire down, put more wire up? Could I have a little more information on that?
I have no formal training in photography, so that's obviously apparent. The people that are using the path and the residents of Cloisters have requested that those 3 wires be removed. They felt that obviously it wasn't working with it being depressed, and you could see paths of people jumping over it in multiple places. It just wasn't much of an obstacle, but it did look rather prison-like, I think was the term that they used. So
yes,
we've gotten to a little bit north of the lawn area, and we're going to continue all the way down to the creek, removing it. And then we've got several areas that we need to replace posts and some 2x6 boards. And then we'll come back and stain it. So.
Great. I just wasn't quite clear because there was no real specific language as to, what was happening with that. I agree that they are ineffective at this point, and that removal would be a good idea. Any other questions or comments from any other board members?
I have
Jan.
one other comment. A few years ago, that area where the fence is, that whole area, there was a herd of goats out there, and also down by Lila Kaiser Park to keep the weed. Was that a program that was through the contractor that you said you contracted some of this work out, or is that something that will be done again at some point? I thought it was cool to see the goats.
The goats work in some locations and not in others. I know that the power plant was using them towards the tail end of last year with a number of escapees and hard to keep the herd in line back there. That didn't work well. We did use them around the Cloisters at the pond area one year. We were only able to get a portion of that cordoned off due to the overgrowth, encroachment of branches and things coming into the fence. And the owner of the goats at that time wanted those goats at least 4 to 5 feet back from the fence line, People like to reach in and pet the goats, and when they do that, they get shocked by the electric fence. So she didn't want that, understandably. The herd has changed ownership once or twice, and I've actually lost contact with who that person is. I can certainly get a hold of Nina at the power plant and see if she has some contact information for me and see what the availability is of the goats. They did work out well in the Willow area, which is also called the sound wall. That was installed. Those trees were planted specifically to block views from the beach of the Cloisters homes and provide a bit of a sound barrier from the bike path and the joggers. So when we threw the goats in, they stripped them down, but fortunately willows like to really grow back when they're exposed to sunlight, so they came back with a vigor. Some people liked that, and some of the residents didn't like that. They lost their view of the beach in a matter of months. So.
Besides the fact that it's a natural way to keep the weeds under control, how does it work out financially? Is it a lot less expensive, or it takes longer with the goats, but expense-wise, is it comparable or less?
When we used them at Lila Kaiser, I believe it was very affordable.
Cool.
I can certainly look back, but it doesn't come to the top of my memory banks as to how much we actually spent on that herd. There were roughly 100 goats in a very small space along the creek that cleared it out in short term.
Okay, any other comments or questions? I want to thank Mike and his crew for doing such an excellent job out there. I think those are two great areas. Thank you. Next item, that's the last business item, so it's potential future agenda items. I have a question because we didn't have the chair selection, which normally occurs on February this month. Is that going to be a possibility next month?
We will have it on next month. Sorry about that.
Thank you.
I think you're getting out.
Okay. With no other...
What's that?
Yeah. Okay. Anything else that you foresee happening on next agenda, Rob, that you can warn us
Potentially, we'll bring the One Water back based on the survey forms that you guys are working on right now. So to have a discussion about it, it's not meant for a vote and the high vote getter is going to win. It's meant to elicit discussion after we see, how people feel about it. We'll bring those results back to you to talk about, and then bring that discussion back to City Council.
Okay, and with that, John?
I'd like to add something to. I know that on the CFAC committee, there were a couple people questioning what is this One Water. So if you can provide them some information about what it's about.
Sure. The One Water Plan is a resource document. It has two purposes, basically. It's to update our utility master plans, our water system master plan, our sanitary sewer master plan, and storm drain master plan, all rolled into one package to take advantage of where they interrelate. We'll have system modeling and a CIP that will come out of that. The other portion of the One Water Plan is to set the stage for Morro Bay's water future, to see where do we want our future water supply to come from. So it really has two purposes. It's to develop a CIP for water, sewer, and storm drain projects, and then to look at the short-term and long-term future on water supply options.
Yeah, if you could do a couple paragraph description of that, there were some people who would be edified to hear what you're actually doing with it.
Okay, I can do that.
Okay. And I still think that Total Water Resource Plan is a much more clear title than One Water Plan. And with that little editorial, okay, Stu, I think you have a question there.
Rob, we're going to initiate the trolley probably in Labor Day, like we did last year, if that's true. But, we had quite a bit of traffic before Labor Day, and perhaps we could move it around and maybe do something. The trolley?
I think you mean Memorial Day.
It's Memorial Day and then it goes to Labor Day, sorry.
Or
Flip.
the week after Harbor Fest, I think it goes till. So we get a little bit extra after Labor Day. We can work with Janine and look at the budget because see how much funding that we have for the trolley to make sure that we can run it those extra days. The fairs do not pay for the operating expenses.
Yeah, I know Santa Barbara does a thing with the Crawleys like we do, and they charge 25 cents. You get on it, you pay 25 cents, and they've done some things. They seem to be pretty well revenue neutral on it. They collect enough money to pay for them, even though they're like we are. They aren't busy all the time or loaded all the time, but that's something surely to consider.
Aren't our fares $1 a piece? I think on the trolley it costs $1.
Santa Barbara?
No, Morro Bay, I think it costs $1 to get on.
Yeah,
And it's still not revenue neutral.
that's quite a bit different, $1.25. So I don't know how they're doing it. I'm going to go down there tomorrow and talk to some people, and maybe we can find out what their secret is.
Okay, I think this will be something good for, Janine to be able to be here and enter into a discussion on a regular agenda item on this at
We'll
some
bring that
point.
forward.
Okay. With that, then I will adjourn the meeting to March 21st, 2018. Thank you very much, everyone, for participating.